welcome to our second segment of this teaching. We're going to come up on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th days without the creation of man in this second segment. Here we have, God said, "Let the waters beneath the heaven be gathered into one area, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth. And to the gathering of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, herbage yielding seed, fruit trees yielding fruit, each after its kind, containing its own seed on the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, herbage yielding seed after its kind, and trees yielding fruit, each containing its seed after its kind. God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. Now we see here in this teaching quite a number of times after its kind, after its kind, after its kind, as if God is saying, even thinking about what would come later on in Darwinism and the theory of evolution, where everything starts with a single cell and then continues to grow and change into different forms. Here God is very specific. It was created, and it was created after its own kind. On this third day we have the herbage. On the fourth day, what we have is the sun, the moon, the stars. We have the creation of season and time. And then the fifth day, we have the fowls in the air, and we have the great sea monsters. Now, what I want to get to here is that in this section, we're going to see how the first day goes with the fourth day, and each day has its mate. The second with the fifth, and the sixth, the third with the sixth. And then the seventh day, we're going to look at that too. On the first day, there was light. On the fourth day, we have the sun, the moon, and the stars. On the second day, we have the separation of the waters. So then we have an atmosphere, and then we have the waters. On the fifth day, we have the birds flying in the atmosphere, and we have the great sea monsters, and we have the fish, and God has blessed this day with telling the fish and the fowls that they are to procreate, and they are to do it abundantly. And then we have on the third day the revelation of the dry land. And to go along with this revelation of the dry land, we have its pair on the sixth day, where we have the creation of the animals, and finally the creation of man. That leads us to the seventh day. The seventh day, the day of rest. It is part of the first week. It is the completion of the first week. And so in Jewish tradition, we see that the Sabbath goes to God and says, "Lord, each day has its mate, and I stand alone." And the Lord said, "No, you don't stand alone. You have your mate, and it's Israel." So we could think, oh, what a silly little thing that they've come up with. But funnily as it is, in the Bible we can see it. But it has to come through the Hebrew language. What we do is we go from the very last letter of the first verse, which is Genesis 1:31, and we take the last letter of that, and we count 7 letters. The first the last letter is a yod. We count 7 letters going into chapter 2, verse 1, and then we come to a shin, and then we go from there 7 more letters, and we come to a resh, and then 7 more letters, we come to an aleph, and the last 7 letters we come to the lamed. What we see in the biblical code here is Israel spelled out. Every 7 letters. The 7, the number of completion, once again. Israel is the completion, or the pair of the Sabbath, for it is the only people in all of history, this people who was called by God. Israel was created by God, as we saw in our very first teaching on Genesis 1:1. And here she is the mate for the Sabbath, for she always kept the Sabbath. And she actually does it until today. And many Messianic Jews keep the Sabbath as well. So what we're going to go ahead and look at is, we've looked at the third day, and we're going to look at the fourth day. God said, "Let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to separate between the day and the night, and they shall serve as signs, and for festivals, and for days and years. And they shall serve as luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to shine upon the earth." And it was so. And God made the 2 great luminaries, the greater luminary to dominate the day, and the lesser luminary to dominate the night. and then the stars. God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, to dominate by day and by night, and to separate between the light and the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day. What I see here is that we have a actual creation of time limits. We have measurement of time. We have a certain amount of time that is a day and a night. We have weeks, we have years, we have months, we have years. We have these to tell us when we're supposed to celebrate festivals and things of that such. So maybe the first 3 days we don't have any time. It's outside of our time limits, outside of our understanding. But once this fourth day hits, then we have measurement, time measured. And it is declared here that it's measured. We also have something else that's really interesting. We have the revelation of the sun and the moon. Now, they are not the greatest luminaries that are in all of the universe. Obviously, the moon is much smaller than the sun and much smaller than Earth. But what does the moon do? It doesn't create its own light. It's just a reflection. It is not that same light. It's a reflection of the light. As Christians are to Christ. We are not Christ ourselves, but when we become Christians, Christ lives in us. And we are to reflect Him in our lives. We are to reflect Him in our ways, in our words, in all that we do. And so we see on this fourth day a wonderful way that we can apply this to our own lives. As the moon is to the sun, so we are to be to Christ. Then we have the fifth day. God said, and here we have life. Life comes upon the planet. God said, let the waters teem with teeming living creatures, and fowl that fly over the earth across the expanse of the heavens. And God created the great sea giants, and every living being that creeps, with which the waters teemed after their kinds, and all winged fowl of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas. But the fowl shall increase on the earth. And there was evening, and there was morning, a fifth day. Again, we see that God is judging His creation. We see on the first day, judgment, and it was good. Second day, no judgment, because the waters were not complete. The third day, we have judgment once again, with the revelation of the dry land and the trees and the fruit and all of the green things that were around. And then we have the fourth day, the sun, the moon, and the stars. And now we're on the fifth day. We've got the fowl of the air. We've got all the creatures that were going to live into the sea. And the thing that we see there is that God used this word again in this section. We have that word that we spoke about in Genesis 1:1, bara. God created these great sea monsters. It was a creation from nothing, as we can say. And so we see this word creation, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. He gave them a command, and fill the waters in the sea. Now, why would He do that? The sea is filled with all of these creatures that among themselves they eat each other, and then it was going to provide in later times for all of humanity the food of the sea. So we have the fifth day. The 5 is the number of grace, and on the fifth day, that is the very first day where we see life coming forth. On the 6th day, God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures, each according to its kind, animal and creeping thing, and beast of the land, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, and the animal according to its kind, and every creeping being of the ground according to its kind, and God saw that it was good. He's really driving it home here. Everything was according to its kind. There was no mixing of creatures. And the thing about the animals is that instinctively they look for those of their own species. A horse isn't going to go after a cow, and a lion is not going to go after a donkey. A lion will go after a lioness, and a horse will go after a horse. Instinctively, they knew that they had to go after their own kind. There was no mixing of the creatures, and they were going to continue. Within their own species, there is a microevolution, a very small evolution, where you can see the dogs, where there are many kinds of dogs, but they're still all canines. The same with the horse and the camel, and we have many very different variations of the camel, but they're all still a camel, a horse, and a dog. They're still all within their own kind. And when we do DNA studies on old bones, they can tell you exactly which species it comes from. The funny thing is about in evolution, they don't even know what the definition of species is, because since according to them there's so much mixing. So here we're going to finish up this section of the teaching, just understanding that God was adamant in that He's the Creator. He is the one who brought forth all of life, Jesus Christ. Yeah, all things were made through Him, and without Him nothing was made. That He blessed the creatures that had life in them to reproduce in their own kind. And this is the end of this section. In the next section, we're going to see the creation of man. We're going to see a few things from the Hebrews' perspective and why man's creation was so particular and so different than all of creation. We are the culmination. God bless you.